They called him the Coffee Boy, 72 years old, hands trembling as he poured cream into porcelain cups for men half his age. Frank Morrison had served his country for 40 years, bled for it in jungles most people couldn't find on a map. But now he was invisible. Just another old man in a stained apron at the Pentagon cafeteria, shuffling between tables while generals discussed wars he'd actually fought in. Nobody looked at him. Nobody cared. But everything was about to change, because one man was about to notice something that would bring an entire room to its knees. It started like any other Thursday morning. Frank arrived at 5 a.m., just like he had for the past 3 years since his wife died, and the bills started piling up. Military pension wasn't enough anymore. Not with the medical costs, not with the medications that kept his damaged heart beating. So he took this job, serving coffee, taking orders, cleaning up after men who wore stars on their shoulders while he wore stains on his apron. The conference room was packed that morning. 20 generals, all decorated, all important, all preparing for some briefing that Frank would never understand and wasn't supposed to care about. He pushed his cart through the door, the wheels squeaking, his back aching with every step. Nobody even glanced up. He was furniture. Background noise. He started pouring coffee, moving from chair to chair, invisible hands serving invisible cups to men who lived in a different world. 2 sugars, one general barked without looking up. Frank obliged. Actually, make it 3, the man corrected, irritated. Frank reached for another packet, his arthritic fingers fumbling. The general sighed, annoyed at the delay. Frank said nothing. He never did. What was the point? These men didn't want his words. They wanted their coffee hot and their interruptions minimal. But then Lieutenant General Marcus Webb walked in, late, apologizing, taking the last seat near the door, right where Frank was standing. Webb was different from the others. Maybe it was because he'd come up through the ranks the hard way. Or maybe it was because he still remembered what it felt like to be overlooked. Whatever the reason, when Frank leaned in to pour his coffee, Webb actually looked at him. Really looked. "Thank you," Webb said. And Frank nearly dropped the pot because nobody ever said thank you. Their eyes met for just a second, and then Webb's gaze drifted downward, catching something on Frank's chest. Something small. Something that didn't belong on a cafeteria worker's uniform. A pin. Faded, old, but unmistakable to anyone who knew what they were looking at. Webb's face went pale. His hand froze halfway to his coffee cup. "Sir," Webb whispered, his voice barely audible. Is that a Medal of Honor lapel pin?" The room didn't stop. Conversations continued. PowerPoint slides advanced. But Frank's hand shook so hard the coffee pot rattled. He nodded, barely, wanting to disappear, wanting this moment to end. He shouldn't have worn it. He never wore it. But today was the anniversary. 52 years since that day in Vietnam, when he'd pulled 18 men from a burning helicopter under enemy fire, went back 3 times while bullets tore through his legs, his shoulder, his chest. They'd given him America's highest military honor, and now he wore it while serving coffee. Webb stood up, slowly, his chair scraping against the floor. The room began to quiet. Other generals looked over, annoyed at the interruption. But Webb wasn't sitting back down. He was standing at attention, his right hand moving to his forehead in a crisp salute, saluting a cafeteria worker. "Saluting Frank. What are you doing, Marcus?" Someone called out, confused, irritated. Webb ignored them. "Gentlemen," his voice cut through the room like a blade. "Do you know who you just ordered to get you 3 sugars?" Silence, complete, suffocating. "This is Sergeant Major Frank Morrison, Medal of Honor recipient, Firebase Delta, 1973. He saved 18 lives while taking 7 bullets. He served 40 years, and we just made him pour our coffee." You could hear hearts breaking in that silence. You could hear shame settling into every corner of that room. One by one, every general stood. 20 men, decorated with bronze stars and silver stars, and distinguished service crosses, all rising to their feet. All saluting the old man in the stained apron. Frank's eyes filled with tears. His lips trembled. He tried to wave them off, tried to tell them to sit down, but Webb stepped forward, gently taking the coffee pot from his shaking hands. "Sir," Webb said, his own voice breaking, "you will never serve coffee in this building again. You will never be invisible again." By Monday, Frank had a new position. Military liaison, consulting role, real salary, real respect. But more than that, he had something he'd lost the day his wife died. He had purpose. He had dignity. He had brothers who remembered that rank doesn't expire and service doesn't fade, and heroes don't become invisible just because they get old. Sometimes justice is a moment, a glance. One person who decides to actually see what everyone else overlooks. Webb saw, and he made sure everyone else did too. Because that's what real leaders do. They don't just wear the stars. They remember what they're supposed to represent.